If this message speaks to you, don't just like it, pass it on. Share it directly with someone who needs to hear it, because messages like this don't always reach everyone they should. Thank you and enjoy. How reparations are actually possible. When people hear reparations, the first reaction is often, that sounds impossible. It's too big or too expensive. But let's step back. Imagine your grandparents working 2 jobs, saving every penny, but being denied a home loan because of the neighborhood they lived in. Imagine watching other families buy homes, build wealth, and pass it down while yours was locked out. Now, imagine what it would mean if that lost opportunity was finally repaired. Economists Sandy Darity and Kirsten Mullen in From Here to Equality calculate that to close the racial wealth gap, America would need a federal program of at least $10 to $12 trillion. That's not a handout. That's compensation for labor that built this nation but was never compensated, and for the systemic exclusion that followed. On average, that equals about $350,000 per eligible household. Not a punishment, not a gift, a number designed to close the gap and bring families to parity with the wealth of their peers. And before anyone says, America has never done this, the truth is, it already has. In 1988, President Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act, paying $20,000 to each Japanese American who had been forced into internment camps. After the Holocaust, Germany created restitution funds for survivors and descendants, payments that continue today. Native American tribes have received treaty settlements and land trust payouts when agreements were broken. Reparations are not a fantasy, they are a tested policy tool. The next myth is, we can't afford it. But history proves otherwise. America spent $6 trillion on COVID relief, $16 trillion to bail out Wall Street in 2008, $8 trillion on wars overseas. We always find money for what we value. The question is, do we value justice? Fund reparations isn't magic, it's math. A small wealth tax on estates above $50 million, a 1% reparations tax on Fortune 500 corporations that directly profited from slavery and segregation, treasury bonds like the war bonds that built America's arsenal in World War II, and redirecting even a fraction of the $800 billion annual defense budget. These tools exist. We've used them before. And here's the bigger truth. Reparations didn't just pay a debt, they grow the economy. McKinsey shows that closing the racial gap could add 1 to 1.5 trillion every year in US GDP. Citi estimates that if we had closed it 20 years ago, today's economy would be 16 trillion larger. That means more jobs, more businesses, and stronger communities. Reparations are not a drain, they are an investment. As Richard Rothstein proves in The Color of Law, the wealth gap wasn't an accident, it was engineered through federal housing policy, through the exclusion from benefits like the GI Bill, which means the government has the responsibility and the ability to repair it. So let's be clear. Reparations are not impossible. They are not fantasy. They are not charity. They are repayment for labor never compensated. They are repair for opportunity denied. They are justice for promises broken. We know the numbers. We know the precedents. We know the funding models. The question is no longer if reparations are possible. The question is whether America is ready to choose justice. Who benefits from reparation? One of the biggest myths about reparations is this: it only helps one group and everybody else loses. The truth is exactly the opposite. Reparations repair a deep wound in Black America, but in doing so, they strengthen the entire nation. So let's look at the receipts. For generations, Black families were locked out of the programs that built American wealth. From Homestead Act land grants to FHA home loans, from the GI Bill to fair access to credit. As Richard Rothstein shows in The Color of Law, these weren't accidents. They were policies that created segregation and locked in inequality. Reparations would change that story. Families burdened with student debt would see it erased. Homeownership would rise, bringing stability and dignity. Businesses would be launched and passed down to children. Generational wealth, the very thing denied for centuries, would finally be possible. That's the first layer, direct repair for the descendants of enslaved people. But there's the deeper truth. When Black America rises, the whole economy arises. McKinsey estimates that closing the racial gap could add 1 to 1.5 trillion every single year to the U.S. economy by 2028. Citi found that if we had closed the gap just 20 years ago, the U.S. economy today would be 16 trillion larger. Moving forward now could add $5 trillion in the next 5 years. What does this mean in real life? More jobs in every sector, more customers spending money in local businesses, a stronger tax base that supports schools, roads, and services in every community. Reparations don't shrink the pie, they make the pie bigger. Reparations also reduce cost that taxpayers already carry. Today, because of the racial wealth gap, millions of families depend on food assistance, Section 8 housing, and other safety nets just to survive. But when families have wealth, they don't need as much help. That means less strain on the public budget. Estimates suggest reparations could cut government assistance costs by over $100 billion a year. And it goes further. Wealth brings better health. Families with savings can afford preventative care, safe housing, and healthy food, reducing long-term healthcare costs for everyone. So reparations don't just boost the economy, they also lighten the load on taxpayers over time. We've seen what happens when a nation invests in its people. After World War II, the GI Bill transformed America by giving veterans access to education, housing, and business capital. That single program built the middle class. But as Darity and Mullen reminds us in From Here to Equality, Black veterans were largely excluded. Reparations would not only correct that exclusion, they would deliver the same middle-class building benefits to the families who were left out the first time. So let's be clear. Black America benefits directly by finally receiving what was systemically denied. The U.S. economy benefits massively, with trillions added in growth, jobs, and spending power. Taxpayers benefit through reduced reliance on public programs. Communities benefit as stronger Black neighborhoods mean stronger housing markets, safer streets, and more opportunities for all. Reparations are not about taking from one group and giving to another. They are about strengthening the foundation of the entire nation. The myth says reparations divide us. The truth is reparations repair us. They are not charity. They are not zero sum. They are a debt owed. And when paid, they build shared prosperity for everyone. Until reparations comes, we'll keep bringing receipts, not just about what's owed, but about how to repair that will lift us all. How reparations would be dismantled. If reparations were passed today, the fight wouldn't end with the signing ceremony. That's when the counterattacks would begin. Every time justice gets close in America, powerful forces, visible and invisible, move to dismantle it. And they don't hide if you know what to look for. You can see the playbook unfolding in real time. Visible powers like Wall Street banks, credit rating agencies, billionaire investors, they'll say reparations will bankrupt the country. It'll crush the dollar. Invisible powers, hedge funds, global finance networks, International Monetary Fund style advisors, they'll quietly shift capital offshore, downgrade U.S. debt, or model worst-case inflation scenarios to panic the markets. Watch for this sign. Sudden headlines about downgraded credit, bond market panic, or a fiscal crisis. It's the same move Standard & Poor's made in 2011 when it downgraded U.S. debt, not because America couldn't pay, but to force austerity. Visible powers for political attacks. Congress, governors, state legislatures. They'll stage hearings, filibusters, and lawsuits to delay or defund reparations. The invisible powers, donor networks, lobbyists, bill mills like ALEC, they'll flood money into campaigns to punish politicians who stand for reparations and quietly draft model bills to block implementation at the state level. Watch for this sign. Sudden bipartisan calls for alternatives like education programs or economic opportunity zones. That's the tell. They're trying to water it down until there's nothing that remains. The social attack? The visible powers, pundits, columnists, late-night commentators. They'll frame reparations as handouts or divisive. Expect constant sound bites like, "Why should I pay for something my ancestors didn't do?" Invisible powers. The bot farms, the troll networks, the foreign actors who thrive on American division, and they flood social media with wedge narratives. What about immigrants? Why not Native Americans? Poor whites struggle too. Watch for this sign. Viral memes that pit one marginalized group against another. That's not organic debate. That's divide and conquer propaganda. This is the same tactic used in the 1970s with the welfare queen myth, a distorted caricature amplified until it poisoned public opinion against safety net programs that mostly helped white families. The messaging attack? Visible powers are the think tanks, the experts, the economists, the media consultants. They roll out glossy reports claiming reparations will fuel inflation, collapse growth, or reward laziness. The invisible powers? PR firms tied to corporate and political elites? They'll plant those talking points across news, podcasts, and even entertainment, turning doubt into a cultural common sense. Watch for this sign. The same facts, repeated word for word across outlets. Wall Street Journal, Fox News, morning radio, TikTok influencers. That's not coincidence. That's coordinated messaging. Naomi Oreskes and Eric Conaway documented this exact tactic in Merchants of Doubt. The same scientists who denied smoking caused cancer were later hired to deny climate change. Reparations will be their next contract. The judicial attack. Visible powers, lawsuits from states, corporations, and individuals claiming reparations are unconstitutional. These cases will be rushed to the Supreme Court. The invisible powers? Judicial networks like the Federalist Society, dark money donors funding amicus briefs, and long-planned strategies to shape the bench. Watch for this sign. Lawsuits framed as equal protections for all races. It's the same script used in Students for Fair Administration versus Harvard to gut affirmative action, and in the Shelby v. Holder to gut the Voting Rights Act. And with Lopper Bright ending, Chevron's deference, courts now have more power to strip agencies of authority to enforce reparations programs. This is where the final battle will be fought. So here's the truth. Reparations won't just be opposed in speech or editorials, they will be targeted in every arena. Financial, political, social, narrative, and judicial. The attacks will be loud in some places, silent in others. Visible headlines will distract you, while invisible networks work in the shadows. But once you know the playbook, you can't be fooled. When they downgrade the credit rating, you'll recognize the fear tactic. When they flood social media with wedge memes, you'll see the bots. When they call reparations handouts, you'll remember the welfare queen myth. When they sue the court, you'll know the donors behind the curtain. The fight isn't just to win reparations, it's to protect reparations from being dismantled the moment they begin. Until reparations comes, we'll keep naming the powers, exposing the tactics, and showing the receipts, because justice isn't just about what's owed, it's about refusing to let truth be stolen again. What strong implementation looks like. The fight for reparations doesn't end with passing a bill. That's just the beginning. Because if reparations are not designed well, defended strongly, and delivered transparently, the same forces that dismantled justice before will try again. So what does strong implementation actually look like? First, reparations must be written into federal law with precision. Eligibility must be clear. Descendants of enslaved Black Americans. Payments must be specific. Direct transfers, land, business capital, education, and debt relief. Oversight must be defined. Independent Black-led bodies managing funds, not agencies vulnerable to sabotage. Why? Because vague laws invite lawsuits. Social Security, for example, has survived for nearly a century because it was written into clear statute. Reparations must have the same permanence. Next, financing. No single lever carries the load. A mix is key. Wealth taxes on ultra-rich estates. Corporate reparations tax on industries that profited from slavery and Jim Crow. Treasury bonds, just like the war bonds that funded World War II. Reallocations, even a fraction of the $800 billion defense budget is enough. Payments are phased in over decades, just like Social Security or the GI Bill, stabilizing the economy and ensuring long-term impact. Third, guardrails. We know corporations will try to pass the cost down. That is why reparations must include antitrust enforcement and consumer protection. If corporations collude to raise prices, regulators can break them up, like DOJ did with AT&T in the 1980s. If they try to gouge, watchdogs can fine them billions, like the Apple ebook case. If they try to lie about reparations costs, transparency law expose it. Without enforcement, the bill drifts back into the working people. With it, reparations stays where they belong, on those who profited. Fourth, transparency. Reparations can't be hidden in bureaucracy. People must see the receipts. Imagine a public site like the recovery.org during the 1990 stimulus, where anyone can see how much has been distributed, who received it, how communities are benefiting, how GDP and tax revenues are growing. Transparency turns propaganda into proof. Finally, cultural and legal armor. History teaches us if justice isn't locked in, it can be rolled back. The Voting Rights Act was gutted in 2013 because its protections weren't made permanent. Reparations must have both cultural protection, education, memorials, museums, Curriculum, they teach why reparations were necessary so they can't be erased. Legal protections, constitutional amendments, or treaty-level agreements making reparations untouchable by future rollbacks. Germany didn't pay Holocaust reparations. It built cultural memory so history could not be denied. America must do the same. So here's the bottom line. Reparations aren't just about writing checks. They are about building a system strong enough to survive attack. Clear law, diverse funding, guardrails against greed, transparency for the public, cultural and legal protections that make it permanent. Because justice isn't just owed, it has to be protected. Until reparations comes, we'll keep showing not just why it's needed, but how to build it strong enough to last. So let's wrap it all together. We've traveled through the truth of reparations in today's time. We've seen that reparations are not impossible. They're policy backed by receipt. We've seen that reparations don't just help Black America, they strengthen the entire nation. We've exposed how powers visible and invisible would try to dismantle them. And we've shown what strong implementation must look like to withstand those attacks. So let's put the truths in one place. Truth 1, reparations are possible. The math is real. The precedents exist. The funding models are ready. Truth 2, reparations benefit everyone. Closing the racial wealth gap could add over $1 trillion a year to the U.S. economy, creating jobs, strengthening housing, and lowering public costs. Truth 3, reparations will be attacked. The financial, political, social narrative, and judicial playbooks are already written. Truth 4, reparations can be defended. Clear laws, diverse funding, strong enforcement, transparency, and cultural protection can make them permanent. These are the facts. These are the receipts. But there's a deeper truth. Reparations are not about guilt. They are not about taking from one group to give to another, and they are not charity. Reparations are justice. Reparations are repair. Reparations are America paying its oldest unpaid bill. And when that bill is paid, we all benefit because justice makes a nation stronger, not weaker. The fight now is not just in Congress or in courts. It's in culture, in classrooms, in conversations at kitchen tables and barbershops. So here's the call. Reject the myths when you hear them. Share the receipts so truth spreads faster than lies. Hold leaders accountable when they dodge the question. And never forget, this fight isn't just about money. It's about memory, dignity, and the future we want to build. The truth of today's time is clear. Reparations are possible, beneficial, and necessary. The power will fight against them, but the truth will outlast the lies. Until reparations comes isn't just a channel. It's a commitment that we will keep naming the debt, showing the proof, and demanding justice until repair is real. If you're still here, thank you for hanging out this long. Please hit the like and subscribe button and click on the notification bell so that I can bring you more content like this.